Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Thanks for checking out my video. So we've done various videos so far on scales and chords and certain techniques you can use to improve both your practice methods and your overall playing. And although in various videos I think we've touched on some small elements of how things can be indicated in musical notation, I haven't really given you much of an introduction to the whole process at all. So today I thought I would record a short video explaining a bit more about musical scores and give you a short and hopefully simple introduction to how certain things are written in the language of music. Now, just like with music theory, there is absolutely no obligation at all to learn to read music to become a good or sometimes even professional level musician. Out of all of the bands or the artists that we listen to, very few can probably actually understand a written piece of music. And it is totally possible to excel as a bedroom player or even a gigging musician with no knowledge of this at all. However, being able to read music can at times be an incredibly valuable tool. Think of it like learning a new language. When we're at home planning to travel and trying to learn French or Spanish, to some people it can probably seem like a little bit of a waste of time. However, when we arrive in our destination country for a new job or a vacation, we quickly realise that the skill is simply more essential than we probably ever imagined. And rather than being able to adapt and move forward, we now start to struggle and possibly become a bit lost. I would definitely say from my own experience that this may be the situation you find yourself in if you have hopes, dreams or ambitions of succeeding as an individual musician or a session player. And when I say that, I'm not referring to solo singer-songwriter types. Individual, professional or session players are usually essentially musicians for hire, who can successfully slot in with a touring or a contracted band, a theatrical performance group, a booked studio session for another artist. In many instances, these musicians are expected to be able to play either a huge range of material or a very specific piece with minimal instruction and preparation time. For instance, if an artist is recording an album and they have a specific arrangement or section they need a guitarist for, they may not have a guitarist in the band themselves, or their level of playing may not be sufficient to record what they want. They would hire somebody who could come in, perform and record that part or song as quickly as possible. They're paying for the studio by the day or possibly the hour, so they won't really want to sit there with you all day to rehearse the track until you get it. There might not even be a full band there for you to rehearse with. The situation is similar with touring or contracted bands. If you wanted to play on a cruise ship or in a theatre production, you'll most likely not have much time to rehearse. The other musicians you will be playing with could even be from different areas of the country, so you may not be able to rehearse at all. You could definitely try to learn everything by ear from the tracks if you have time and make your own charts. However, that's also a degree of musical notation right there, really. Most of the time when you apply for these sorts of roles, you will probably go through agencies anyway, and usually they will require an interview, and most likely your sight reading skills will be measured there. And unfortunately, if that doesn't go too well, you probably won't even get the list of tracks. But don't feel disheartened. As I say, learning to read music is just like learning a new language, and it can be done at any age. There are obviously thousands, millions of musicians all over the country, all over the world, and many wishing and hoping to get to some sort of professional level. Taking the time to learn to sight read, at least to some extent, is another skill that will possibly move your musical resume higher up in the pile. Okay, so musical notation is essentially a roadmap or instruction sheet for a piece of music. It literally tells you everything you need to know about a piece. It will tell you the key it's in, the tempo, the time signature or groove, feel, the chords, the structure, and obviously any single note lines for guitar, piano, vocal, whatever. So I'm going to try and give you a quick breakdown or explanation of some of the key points in a piece of music, and hopefully this helps you to quickly improve your skills. So, first things first, this is our musical stave. We use 5 lines on the stave, which can be a bit confusing as we have 6 strings on the guitar. But don't worry, these lines are not meant to represent the strings at all. So try not to think of it like that. Now the sign here at the beginning is called the clef. And most specifically, this is the treble clef. There are a few different types of clef. And each one is basically an indication of the pitch we are playing, or even the instrument we are using. Obviously, different instruments have different pitches, so by using different clefs, it indicates which part you should be playing, or which part you should be reading. The most common signs you will see are this one, the treble clef, and possibly this one, which is the bass clef. Treble is for higher instruments like us, guitars, top end of the piano. Bass clef is for lower instruments like bass or bottom end of the piano. And yeah, you heard that right. If you're playing piano, most likely you will be using both. And that's one for each hand. And to make it even more confusing, the notes on each stave are written slightly differently or appear in different places. Sounds difficult, but don't worry, it can be done. People have been doing this for years and years. As we are guitarists though, we only really need to focus on this one. The next thing we have on our score is our key signature. This tells us which key the piece is in. Now, obviously, different keys have different numbers of sharp and flat notes. The number of sharps or flats and their location on the stave will indicate to you what key you are in. If you'd like a better explanation of key signatures and how they're determined, check out my lesson on the circle of this or key signatures on my website, or maybe I've done a video on that as well now. Sharps and flats will always be written on the stave in the places of the notes they apply to. Sharps are written in the order F, C, G, D, A, E, B, and flats are written in reverse B, E, A, D, G, C, F. You will never see, or you shouldn't see, sharps and flats written together in the key signature, as keys are either sharp or flat, not both. If you do see them together, then something has gone very wrong. The next thing you'll see is this number, which indicates to us the time signature. Now, time signatures are not the speed we play music, but indicate the number of beats to each bar and give us an idea of the general feel or rhythm of the piece. The most common time signature you will see is 4/4, which essentially means 4 beats to every bar. The top number is telling us the number of beats in each bar, while the bottom number indicates that each note will be a crotchet or quarter note. In 2/4, the notes again will each be crotchets, but each bar will only have 2 beats. 4/4 is definitely used most of all, and you'll hear that in most pop, rock, blues, loads of other music. But there are many other variations, especially when you get into more progressive or experimental music. Other common time signatures you might hear will be 3/4, which again uses crotchets or quarter notes, but this time just 3 beats to every bar. This has a sort of swing or waltz type feel. A really good example of 3/4 is the song Sleepwalk, which is originally by Santo and Johnny, I think. But the Shadows also did a really good version. Another is 6/8, which this time we are playing 8th notes. So half the value of a crotchet or quarter note, and we have 6 of these in every bar this time. This can have a very similar feel to 3/4, but with this we're usually playing 2 sets of triplets, and obviously we only get a strong first beat on the first set. A good example of this in a song is Gravity by John Mayer, if you know that. Okay, so we know what part of a score to read, we know what time we are playing to, and we know what key we're in. But what notes are we going to play? So, notes are written on the treble clef in this order. A good way to remember this is to memorise the letters on the lines, which are E, G, B, D, F, and come up with a kooky rhyme that will help you. A good one is every good boy deserves favours, but you can always come up with your own, and if you think of a good one, please let me know. Another good way to remember note placement is that the spaces on the treble clef also spell the word face. Between both of these methods, you should have no problems identifying your notes. On the bass clef, like I said, the notes appear slightly differently. And if we look at the grand stave, which is both together, you might get an idea why. So, as we can see, our middle C, which is written here on our treble clef, is actually at the top or just above our bass clef. So essentially for our bass clef notes, they just continue down in the same order from our treble clef. This obviously makes it much easier for people playing from both. The notes on the lines of the bass clef run G, B, D, F, A. Good boys do favours always. And the spaces are A, C, E, G. All cows eat grass. Again, if you come up with better ones, please let me know. Okay, now the last thing we're going to talk about is the time or beats that are allocated to each note, as different ways notes are drawn indicate how long we should play or hold a note before we move to the next one. So a crotchet or quarter note is equal to 1 beat in the bar. They are referred to as quarter notes as they always equal a quarter of the duration of a whole note. Alright? A whole note looks like this and is called a semi-breve. This lasts 4 beats. We also have half notes, which are called minims, which equal 2 beats. And then we get into eighth notes, known as quavers. These are half the value of a crotchet and are indicated by the little tail they have. Now, hopefully from this, you can see that music is in fact very mathematical, and we can continue to divide our numbers down further and further. Quavers become semi-quavers, then demi-semi-quavers, and they continue to increase the length of their name as they divide further and become shorter and shorter. However, in these early stages, you don't really need to worry about this as much, as they are not really super common anyway, unless you are playing very fast and complex music. The more we divide these down, the more tails are written on the notes. So at least if you see these, you should be able to work out what they are. Another thing you might see from time to time is any of these notes followed by a dot. Although maybe more common on the larger note values, a dot simply means we add half the value of the note again. So a crotchet with a dot would equal 1.5 beats. A minim with a dot would be 3 beats, and so on and so on. For a really good example of how all these different note timings sound, take a look at these examples. Ultimately, we can talk about note lengths as much as we want, but if you're able to find something you can apply them to, they will make a lot more sense. And plus, this can be really fun. So if I just run through a couple quickly, ice cream, ice cream, ice cream, or hot dog, or popcorn, popcorn, 2 crotchets, okay? Hamburger, 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 or strawberry, strawberry, 1 crotchet and a pair of quavers. And then if I do one of my favourite ones, pepperoni pizza, which is 4 semi-quavers and a pair of quavers. Now, just as we use different notes to indicate how long each note should be played, we also use different symbols to indicate when we should play nothing at all. These symbols are called rests. We can have a whole rest, a 2-beat rest, a single beat rest, and divide further down the same as we can with our notes. Again, adding more tails onto our 8th note rest as we get smaller and smaller. Rests, just like our notes, can also be marked with dots to indicate 1.5 times of the value. Okay, so the very last thing I'm going to quickly show you is just the C position of the major scale. If you don't know this already, then go and check out my video on the major scale for a more in-depth lesson. But this position here is a really good place to start when you are beginning to work on your sight reading on guitar. By beginning here, you have your middle C on the A string, 3rd fret. This gives you the option of going lower down all the way to E on the bottom string, but also gives you lots of room to go up all the way through to the next octave C, and then to F on the 1st fret of the top E string, and even further up to A or B if you want to slide up just a little further. This position gives you all the notes you need for the stave within easy reach of each other, and it's what I learnt first and still use most often now. Alright, so I hope all that makes sense and has made understanding musical score a little bit easier for you. You may have to go back and rewind a few times. Remember, when you begin to try to use all 4 of your fingers and use that up and down alternate picking method that I've talked about before as well. Start off with easy pieces like nursery rhymes, vocal lines, and obviously pieces in C major will be the easiest as there are no sharps or flat notes. Okay, yeah, good luck.